Hey, what's going on, guys? And welcome to a second episode of the Master Series color grading tutorial in Davinci Resolve. Before we're going to start, I want to say a special thank you to Pascal Payant for allowing me and actually providing me with this amazing footage from his feature film On the Horizon. Definitely check it out. I'm going to provide a link somewhere in the description or on the screen. And what we're going to be doing today, I actually have no idea. We're going to be working completely blind right now at the moment. I didn't prepare this tutorial. I'm just going to go right now with the flow. And I know you're probably thinking, well, you had this footage for a while, this and that. It's true. I had this footage for a little bit, for some time now actually, but I didn't prepare anything. And the reason why I'm doing this, I kind of want to go completely from scratch, assuming that if you're working as a colorist and you just walked in a room for the project and you have the clients and producer and the manager and whatever sitting in a room, you're not going to have really time to prepare, let's say, if you're being hired as a colorist. So I kind of liked a little bit of pressure, I guess, of that. That way I have to think a little bit harder to figure out what I'm going to do. And today I'm going to be grading using the LUT. And our LUT we're going to be using is the same like in my last tutorials. And if you haven't seen it, go ahead and check it out. You're going to really like it. I'm going to be using the standard Rec 709 codec 2383 D55. Alright, so let's select this. And if you haven't seen my tutorial, the reason why I'm selecting LUT through here rather than actually creating another node and selecting like this, because let's say your movie gonna be transferred to the actual film. It's not gonna be distributed digitally, it's gonna be film. Well, when you grading with this like that, with this LUT applied to every single clip, what happens when you finish color grading? Let's say, just as example, let's say I'm gonna bring this up. Okay, so let's say the color grading is done, everybody's happy, and now we have to transfer it to film. Well, if you're not gonna take off that LUT and if you're gonna transfer it to the film, so let's say this is your final look right now, and if you're gonna transfer it to the film, you're actually gonna get this. This is gonna be your film, because this LUT is actually imitating the properties of the film. So the part of the workflow, when you finish color grading and everybody's happy and it's time to transfer this project to film, you're gonna go to the settings and you're just gonna turn it off, just like that. So this what's gonna be transferring to the actual film, and film itself would replicate those LUT properties, and it's gonna look exactly whatever you color graded with the director or client or whatever. So that's the reason why would you apply LUT. Now, a lot of times modern movies actually being, shown digitally, the film is pretty much, I guess, dying in the theaters, and you can still use the LUT for your visual. If you, like me, and I really like that film look, then you can actually use the LUT. But, it's less and less people actually using that kind of workflow. Anyways, enough chatting, let's start. I bought myself enough time to think what I'm gonna do, and I still don't know. Alright, I'm on a spot here. So, we applied the LUT. Let's go double check. No, we didn't. Let's go to Film LUT, and we're gonna click Save. Okay. So, let's start working. Well, as we can see here on the scopes, or on the waveform, whatever you're more comfortable working, I'm just going to leave RGB Parade. The picture is very dark. And in this tutorial, I actually want to use a lot of false color by Time and Pixels. It's probably the best plugin for Davinci Resolve. It's a lifesaver. I love using this plugin. I always use this plugin. And if we're gonna take a look here, we actually see that everything is a little bit too dark. And by the way, when you apply the plugin, at this point, the parade is false. It's not showing the true data. So you actually at this point have to rely on the color bar right over here. Okay, so I'm gonna start introducing a little bit information back in the shadows. Okay, I think like this is enough. Because keep in mind, actually I want to address this problem too. A lot of amateurs, what they do, let's say this is obviously a dark shot, okay? So what a lot of amateurs do, they're going to color grade it like that, try to make it look like day. And this is a huge mistake. I don't understand why people keep doing that, because this has obviously been shot with the low light, and you have to keep it that way. Don't try to, whenever you have footage like this, don't try to make it look like a middle of the daylight or the sunlight, you know. It's been specifically shot like that. She's in a dark dressing room, so you have to keep the mood, because when you apply, you know, the crazy curve like that, you're killing cinematography. This is not the proper color grading. So keep that in mind. A lot of people, I guess almost everyone's doing that mistake. And, you know, people always say, oh, it's too dark, too dark. Well, you can go ahead right now and take any Hollywood movie, okay, apply that false color plugin and take a look at their information, or a waveform if you don't have the plugin, and look exactly where the color is at, or luminosity is at. And you can see actually a lot of films are very dark like that. Anyways, enough of chatter. Let's continue. So we adjusted the dark. We brought a little bit more information. And as we can see, the red camera actually suffering a lot from this is the incredible noise amount. Because it's too dark and digital cameras actually love light, we can see crazy amount of noise. Well, we have two options. We can either use noise reduction right now and get cleaner workflow down the line, but it's going to slow down our computer. Or we can apply noise reduction in a very last node. Some people argue which one you should do first. I always like to apply it at the very beginning, and that's what I'm going to do right now. So I'm going to go here, and I can use temporal noise reduction, but it's going to be very slow. But I guess let's try something different. So let's do 3 frames average. Let's keep it faster. And over here, let's see. Let's dial and see what we're gonna get. Okay, I'm actually looking right here. Okay, 22. Okay, I think somewhere around 12 look decent. Okay, let's turn off the plugin and let's check it out before and after. Before and after. Huge difference. So let's label this noise reduction. And by the way, if you're gonna push and hold control button, you can actually switch the nodes places. So our first node going to be noise reduction, and the second node going to be exposure. Now, let's take a look at saturation on the vectorscope. Let me see. Let me do show skin indicator, and let's do the way we can see a little bit better. Well, it's not too saturated, but I don't think the cinematographer shooting this wanted to make it look too bright and saturated. Obviously, it's a very dramatic shot. That's another thing you have to look at whenever you color grade. You can't just always apply the same rule for every shot you're working. So I really like how it looks. I'm not going to be messing with any saturation. So I'm going to go back to the parade, and I'm going to create another node. And let's start working with a parallel mixer. So let's play back the footage and see what's going on here. Alright, the camera moves around. Let's see. And let's take a look first what's going on here. So she's applying the lipstick. Okay, so a little bit moody. I like that. Very nice. We can see here that the light is falling from the left side. So let me do relighting. I'm gonna call this light, and I'm gonna do very basic relighting, or I should say very crude relighting. I'm gonna go like this, and this is basically gonna be applied to pretty much everything. Okay, and I'm gonna go to the wheels, and I'm just gonna crank it up a little bit. And keep in mind also, when you increase the lightness, you're losing the contrast. But if you increase the light and you pull down on the shadows, then you introduce contrast. So keep that in mind. And here, I'm gonna go to the Luma, just like that. And I'm only gonna be introducing that light to the brightest areas. Okay, just like this. I'm gonna make a very nice soft selection, soft feather. Alright, that looks great. Check it out, before and after. So now at this point we actually start introducing some kind of depth into the shot. So let's go at the very beginning, and okay, somewhere, okay, keep missing. Alright, so let's check it out here, before and after. So see how that gradient started actually making things look more 3D dimensional. And that's what you really want as a colorist. You always want to make things look more 3D dimensional than what they are. Okay, so that looks great. What else can I do? Well, she's the main character, so what we may want to do, we may actually introduce a little bit more light on her. So I'm gonna call this node overall light. That way we're not gonna get confused later down the line. And I personally always like to label the nodes because, you know, depending on a project, it's very easy to completely lose track of what's going on. And we're gonna call this one female light. Okay, my female light, I'm also gonna make it very, very crude. It's gonna be very rough. It's not gonna be any kind of masking. It's just gonna be oval, just like this. And I don't know if any of the guys from Blackmagic Design watching my tutorials, but please make the curves, the masking is a little bit more faster, because it's very, very slow working, especially when you have 4K, 5K, and 6K footage. So let's continue. Let's bring up a little more exposure on her. Let me turn on the false colors and let's take a look. So before and after, that's definitely a big amount of light. So that looks great. So now we sort of started balancing everything a little bit more. So that's before, that's after. I think a little bit too much. So let me cut it down by half. Okay, before, after. Okay, beautiful. Perfect. And as a matter of fact, I'm not even going to track this light because everything blends very nicely. Look, before and after, because of the soft feathering. So now, you're probably thinking, well, everything is red, how about the skin tone? Well, again, that goes back to exactly what I said earlier, that cinematographer, when he or she been shooting the film, they kept the look in mind. So if you have the footage like this, that not always means that you have to make skin tones necessarily, you know, at, I don't know what people say, at 60 RE, and, you know, you have to stick to it. That's not always the case. So you have to always be very fluid, I guess, when you color grade. Because a lot of the rules, what they tell you in the film school or the books, whatever, they not really suitable for real life scenarios. So keep that in mind. So let's take a look what we've done. Okay, let's check it out. Before and after. And of course there's a false colors there. I'm gonna delete. Okay, let's go back and check it out. So this is before and after. before and after. Very, very nice. Now, how about we're going to introduce a little bit more privacy, and I'm going to do a little bit of vignetting. Okay, let's create another node, and I'm going to call this V for vignetting. Okay, just like this. And I'm just going to vignette this part right over here. And you guys gonna see what kind of a huge effect it's gonna do on overall picture. Okay, let's flip it, and we can probably do even softer feather. So basically I'm trying to align vignette on her eyes. Okay, now check it out, before and after. You see how much more depth the simple vignetting brought, even though it's not as noticeable, but we actually see that everything is focused on her eyes and her face. So let's check it out, before and after. And if I'm gonna select the vignetting, check it out. Check it out, the difference. See, it makes everything more 3D dimensional. And again, just as a previous notes, I'm not even going to track this, because this is such a, I'm not going to say easy shot, but very straightforward. It's dark, and we can easily get away without tracking any of the adjustments that we've done. Because even though you guys watching the tutorial, you can say, oh, I can totally tell. Well, if a regular person going to watch this, they're going to have absolutely no ideas if there's a vignetting there or whatever is going on. So also keep that in mind. So check it out. Let's see. Let's do a little breakdown on what's going on so far. So let's turn everything off. Noise reduction, exposure. Okay, overall light, female light, vignetting, and that's a dummy node. So just really by doing a few very simple adjustments, we actually made this shot way more interesting than it was originally. And another thing I want to point out, that if you look at the RGB parade over here, some people can say, oh, the shadow's too elevated. Well, again, despite what book's telling you, let's say, you have to keep the shadows like super dark, this and that, that's not always the case. You don't always have to be, very, very dark. You don't have to do this. It's all about the storytelling. It's all about delivering the right image that corresponds of what's going on in the storyline. So just for the, I guess, protection, we can do a slight curve to make sure that our blacks staying black, which we're pretty much desaturating the lower part. Okay, let's check it out. Is anything going on? Absolutely not. So that means all our blacks in pretty good shape. Okay, let's check it out here. Before and after. Before and after. Now, another thing, and this is not applicable to this particular image we're working, but for example, if you have a weird color cast in your highlights, you can do actually opposite curve. You can do curve like this. Let's see. You can desaturate the highlights, which in this particular file that we're working, we really don't have. But in case there's something funky going on, keep in mind that's what you can do. And actually you can see here that we desaturating the brightest parts of the image, which actually at this point doesn't look too bad. I kind of like a little bit of muted color like that. Okay, so let's leave this. I really like that. That looks great. And now finally I'm gonna introduce a film grain. And in sometimes introducing the film grain helps you to blend everything better instead of leaving, image as is. And it all depends again on what kind of project you have, what exactly you're working. So let's turn off the film color. Let's do 16 millimeter. Actually, let's do Super 35 since it's a 4K file. And let's do half. Okay, that doesn't look too bad. We probably can do 25. Okay, let me do the full screen. And let's check it out, the grain before and after. I don't know if you can see through YouTube compression, but it adds a little bit of interesting look. Now, here's one thing that is very optional, and it all depends on the shot. Let's go back to the parallel mixer, and let me create another node. And if you want to do more or less a beauty shot, you don't want to have, you know, a lot of contrast really. You kind of want everything to look more or less silky. So you can actually decrease the midtone detail. And let me turn off all those adjustments, that way you can see what I'm doing. So let me call this midtones. And I dialed our midtone details at -35. So let's go back to original. And you can see that original is more rough. And if we're going to go back to -35, you see how it smooths out everything. Now, this is not really a perfect technique. This is very crude technique, you know. It's like bringing bazooka to a fist fight. But sometimes it does the job. Like in this particular case, we can totally get away with it. So let's keep this. Let's turn all our adjustments, and that's what we have. Before and after. Alright, thank you so much for watching, guys. The next part's coming very, very soon. Make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you soon.